I am SharRon Jamison, and I am the CEO and founder of the Jamison Group. And welcome to Soaring with SharRon. I am so excited that you are here, and I celebrate your presence because I know on a Saturday afternoon there's so many other places that you can be. So I'm so excited that you're here. So welcome. And today I'm excited, so excited to interview one of my dearest friends. If you have not heard about her, her name is Alex Okorji. She hails from beautiful Lagos, Nigeria. So she's here staying with us from Nigeria now. So it might be a little delay in the network. But also she is an author. She is a speaker. She is a blogger. She is the owner, writer, and publisher of her own magazine. She is an actress. She is what I call a marketing genius, and she works with people to help them expand their brand and their platform globally. She was also listed as one of the top 200 women in the world. Not only that, she sings, and she's a mom. She's so many different things. But what I love about her is that Alex is committed to using her platform not only to celebrate and support herself, but to celebrate and support all of us women, all people, but women. So I want to say welcome, Alex. So happy that you're here. So welcome.
Thank you, SharRon. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. I'm sorry, I do hear a bit of feedback. So the radio host in me is like, I hear myself, but I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on Soaring with SharRon.
Well, I'm excited that you are here, and I realize that you're like 7 hours ahead. So thank you for standing up late to be with me today. And I cannot wait to dive into the naked truth. The naked truth. I have to say, it made me blush a little bit, but I really, really enjoyed it. And because it is so rich with insight, I said I'm going to identify 6 different topics for us to talk about, because the book is so rich that I know that people will glean so much wisdom and so much insight based on your writing. But before I get started, what is the naked philosophy, and why do you feel that it's so important for people to embrace the naked philosophy?
First of all, thank you. That's a great question. And a lot of people kind of like, oh, what is the naked philosophy? The naked philosophy really is a freedom mindset, right? It really is. And that's the easiest way to call it. Just call it the freedom mindset, right? It's, you having the ability to strip down, first of all, gift yourself the freedom to, strip down boundaries, barriers, thoughts, and the fear that has caged you from, thriving. And a lot of us deal with that. And so when you get naked, it means that you kind of like strip down and you reveal, right? You take off, right? Baggage and cover-ups and all of those things that have held you back, right? From moving forward and, making progress. So the naked philosophy is really just sort of the level of you're aware of all of the things that have held you back, all the fears that you have, and just basically entering into a state of awareness where you are willing to give yourself freedom to exist without boundaries and barriers.
I love that, to give people freedom, to give themselves freedom. I think that is just a powerful statement, because I believe that only in liberation do we flourish. But what I also know is that for some, liberation is something that people don't want to do, because with awareness comes accountability. So talk about how can we be more accountable for our thoughts, our souls, our bodies, our minds. How can we stand more in our power to be accountable so that we can be naked? Naked comes at a price. Can you speak to that?
Which is why, and I think that the beauty, first of all, I look at, like, when I think of the word naked, I think of so many things. We can think of naked as being vulnerable. You can think of naked as being transparent. You can think of naked as being honest. You can think of naked as being expressive. You can think of naked as being, so you can see naked in so many ways. It represents so many things. And I think that the real way that you really can be, hold yourself accountable is to tell yourself the truth. That is like, if you, I think that I could just call the book The Truth, right? But I don't just say it's the truth. I say it's the naked truth. Because when you start to tell yourself the truth, then you start to hold yourself accountable to your thoughts. You hold yourself accountable to your beliefs. You start to hold yourself accountable to your actions, to your response to other people, to how you treat people. So I think that when we're able to separate, to tell ourselves what the truth is, and sometimes the truth is heavy, sometimes the truth is bitter, sometimes the truth is painful, sometimes the truth is, but I think that when we're served the truth, we're able to make informed judgment. I always say that when we lie or when we deny ourselves the truth, it comes from a place of fear, right? Because those who tell lies or who lie do so from the, because they are afraid to lose something or someone, right? So you tell a lie because you're afraid to lose something. And those who stand by the truth or tell the truth, tell the truth because they're afraid to lose themselves. They don't want to lose themselves. So you have to get to a place where you're saying, for me to be accountable to myself at all times, I have to be honest with myself. I can lie to everybody, but I can't lie to you. So you start by working in your truth. And I think that's when you really show up, at the highest level of yourself.
I love when you talk about this aspect of being in your truth, because I do believe that people struggle. They struggle to discern what's truth and what's tradition. Because sometimes we have played along, to go along for so long that we can't discern and dissect what's truth and what's tradition. How did you get to a point in your life when you were able to discern clearly what was your truth versus what was tradition, and what was yourself versus what was the stereotypes, and what was your norm versus societal norms? So how did you get to that point? Because that's the core of who we are, is understanding our truth and that clarity. How did you get to that point? And for people listening, how would you advise them to peel away all that tradition and norms or whatever to get to their authentic truth? Tell us about your process, and what did that process cost you? Because you paid a price for liberation. Liberation is never free.
Okay, SharRon, let me say that first of all, this is like a very pregnant question. So there are like 3 layers in this, but maybe I would probably start with my journey and how I was able to kind of get from where I was and to where I am now, and to be able to identify what my truth is and live in my truth. I would first start with saying that, I was born into, I have I don't want to say a traditional career, but, the career that I have, being an actress in the entertainment industry, where, we're basically, it's all make believe, right? So there's a lot of acting, and there's a lot of trying to be something you're not, and there's all trying to live for the cameras and trying to live for society and everyone's expectation. And really, I found out that at the top of it all, it's just we trying to be perfect, and we're all trying to be perfect every day. We're trying to be the perfect wife, or the perfect girlfriend, or the perfect sister or daughter or friend, or even boss. You're trying to be the perfect business person. You want to run the perfect, we're all striving for perfection. And then we don't realize that perfection is an illusion. It is a myth. It doesn't exist. And what might be perfect for you might not necessarily be perfect for me. So we all have to identify. So I found out personally that I was trying to live up to society's idea of perfection. And I kind of like failed in a sense, because as an African, every African parents has one dream, well, 2 dreams for their kids. You go to school, get an education, and you get married, and you have kids, and so, and then I finally got married, and everyone thought it was, first of all, everyone had an opinion about it. The people who say, "Oh, you guys look great together," because I married another actor from, another African country, from Ghana. And of course, this is a good-looking man, and here you are, a good-looking lady, and everyone just thinks, "Oh, you guys look great together." But they don't really understand the reality of, and even for myself, I think that I made my choices based on what everyone else saw or what everyone else thought, as opposed to what I truly felt, or what I, or as opposed to the signs that were there. And I think that what happens is a lot of times is that we kind of pick our preferences over our standards. We pick our preferences over our standards. And, people would ask, what is the difference? I would say that, preference is something that you want, and standard is something that you need. And a lot of the times we focus so much on what we want as opposed to what we actually need. And a lot of the times what we want is not what we need. And so here I am, I got married, and then the marriage wasn't working. And then, I got separated, and I was left with a 6-month-old baby. And the new mom, I had put on a bit of weight, and, I was abandoned, and I moved back home to Nigeria. And I wasn't sure how I was going to rebuild my life, For the first time, I didn't know what to do. I was stuck with a baby. So it wasn't just myself and just me going back to work or going to the gym and losing weight. I didn't even have the energy to lose weight. And while I was going through all of that, I started feeling depressed. I was feeling depressed. I was feeling frustrated as a working actor who's used to being every day in the studio working. And I worked up until I was 9 months, like popping, like I pretty much went like from the studio, like 3 days into the hospital and popped my day. So you can imagine just going from that to not being able to book jobs, not being able to, I wasn't even sure how to introduce myself. I'd taken a break, had a baby. My baby was young. I wasn't sure how to, and then I had parents who, my dad is in the entertainment industry as well. And so I was worried about press. I was worried about what people were going to say. And there I was going to be a statistic. And that's what I fought for. I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to be another actress whose marriage didn't work. I didn't want to be another single mother. And here I was failing. I was totally failing and falling flat in front of everyone. And, people start to, I would go out to events, and on the red carpet, someone would ask me and say, Alex, how's your marriage? How's your husband? And I would lie. I was lying and lying. And I would say, oh, my husband is fine. But I think it just got to the part where I couldn't stand myself anymore. Right. And I was afraid to tell people what was going on because I was worried about judgment. And I think that that's where when people run away from the truth, they're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of what people are going to say. They're afraid of, reaction. They're afraid of being, the Lone Ranger. They're afraid of standing alone for their beliefs. And I think that's why people run away from the truth, because you're afraid of judgment. You're afraid people are going to castigate you. They're going to say, yeah, there she goes. Another failed act, another failed marriage, another single mother, and all of those things. And I was afraid of that judgment. So I was lying. So I would go on the red carpet and say, my husband is fine. We're great. We're happy. But nobody knew that I was struggling. Nobody knew that I was, I had the baby to raise, and I was worried about what my parents would say. And so I think one day I just what happened was I wasn't sure who to talk to, because again, I was worried about confiding in someone and it was going to make like the front page news. So I decided to start writing. And I think it was that first step in journaling, and again, I believe in expression. It's either you're sharing with someone or you're sharing with your journal or your piece of paper. And I started scribbling how I was feeling. And I think that even though I scribbled how I was feeling, it wasn't telling me anything back, right? So I just wrote words, and I kind of needed the words to speak back to me. And so I took kind of like a bold step, and I put it out there on Facebook, and I said, hey, I put it out in the world, and then I got reactions, and then people were like, oh, wow, this is so real. I can connect with this. I can relate to this. I didn't know you were going through this. And then all of a sudden I became relatable. I became a human being. Like, okay, I have flaws too. I'm not perfect, and I go through things. And, I'm not the first person whose marriage will not work. I'm not going to be the first, person who's going to end up a single mother. So what that did for me was finally I got a reaction. And I think it was that support of people saying, what, it's not so bad. The word is not going to come to an end. Oh, I relate to you. You remind me of my sister went through exactly that. My sister is going through this. I know somebody who's going through that. All of a sudden, I started to realize that I wasn't alone. So the judgment I was so afraid of that I was lying about, I was finally getting support, and people, so the comments started giving me the healing that I needed and the strength that I kind of needed to sort of work in that truth. And I'm no longer afraid. I'm no longer afraid. And it's funny because I just realized that was what it was. It was fear. So a lot of the times when we lie, what did you say?
No, I'm saying
a lot of the times, even as a child, a lot of the times when you get caught doing something wrong and somebody asks you and says, did you do it? Me, because you're afraid of you're afraid of being punished. You're afraid of the reaction. You're afraid. It's fear. It's fear that makes you say, no, not me. I didn't do it. And, or, you're afraid even when you're going out to a meeting and someone is calling you, where are you? And you say, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. I'm 10 minutes away. And you're 2 hours away. It's fear, it's the fear of the reaction. But, the moment I started, this is what I realized. I realized that when I tell the truth, I kind of shift the burden from me to the other person. When I tell a lie, the burden is on me. I have to tell so many more lies to cover it up. I have to deal with, think of what if the person finds out, what is gonna, but when I tell the truth, I dump it on you, and it's up to you to see. It's up to you to deal with the truth. If you can deal with it, that's fine. If you don't, that's. So back to the question that you had asked me, you said, how did I go from, I think the first step I took was really expressing, first of all, expressing my feelings, my pain, expressing what I had gone through, and being honest about it, being vulnerable about it, not being ashamed, because again, being naked is about you not being ashamed, because the truth is we all have flaws, we all have scars, we all have things we want to cover up. And I think that it takes a lot of boldness for someone to say, what, these are my scars. Hey, these are my flaws, and I'm comfortable with it. And I don't care if you're going to judge me. I think there's peace that comes with that. And the truth is, if you're going to a particular destination, you're moving somewhere, and you are carrying baggage, it's going to be difficult for you to get to your destination. You have all these clothes, and you have like 10 fur coats on, and you have a jeans, and you have that, and you've got another bag, and you've got all this, you have different things, different baggages representing different things. It's going to be so much, it'll be more difficult for you to get to where you're going, to run to where you're going to. But when you take them off and you strip them or take off the layers, and you're like, I want to be with less baggage. I want to take this off and take that off. Then it's so much more easier for you to move to where you're going to. So for me, I realized that living in my truth, I just found a place where I shifted the burden from myself to other people. So if I tell you something, it's up to you to deal with it. If you can handle it, that's fine. If you can't handle it, I'm sorry. It's the truth.
I love the idea about shifting the burden. I never really thought about it that way, to shift the burden to someone else because you told the truth. And I think that's powerful. And I think when we are interacting with people and they cannot hold place or space for our truth, that really is, to me, a gauge of how powerful the connection is and the relationship is. Because if I'm in friendship with you and there's no space, and not only space, but no grace for me to share my truth without condemnation, that lets me know that our relationship is fragile, flimsy, it's flaky. And I'm not interested in fragile, flimsy, or flaky. So I think I really celebrate what you're saying. And I might have to put that in a sermon. I like that. Put the burden. I feel a sermon coming on. I think that is really, really powerful. But, I want to talk, shift a little bit, because your whole philosophy about truth telling and being a meaning maker and being having the freedom of expression. I want to skip to chapter 5. I'm skipping around in your book because it's so rich. Everybody have to get this book, The Naked.
Oh my God, chapter 5. I don't know what is chapter 5.
It's going to be easy.
Okay.
I love to talk about the mind. And I want to read that. I thought it was so powerful. He said, I'm always eager to make people think, because I have learned that the mind is a powerhouse and our inner thoughts are so essential. Everything starts with that conversation we have with ourselves, the self-talk. So if you are telling and advising someone to have a self-talk, what are some of the questions that you would advise them to ask themselves so that they can enter into honest dialogue, meaningful dialogue with themselves? What would you say? What are give us share 3 questions that will help them enter into that gateway of truth.
Okay, so let's see. An honest dialogue. First of all, I think the first question is, who am I? I think who am I is so important. Who am I? Who am I and what represents me? Like what are, when you ask who you are and when you know who you are, I think that everything else becomes clear. I think for a lot of the times, and I said something even when I was writing this book, is that I was on a self journey trying to discover myself. And I think I really, really came into my own when I stood in my tree, because I know who Alex is. Like, you can't wake me up 2 a.m. I know who I am, and you can't change. There's nothing you can change about that. Like, I stand for something, and if it's not it, it's not it. So I think the first question is, who am I? What are the things that I can tolerate? What are the things that I can deal with? What are the things that are deal breakers that I know that it's, what are my standards and preferences? Again, back to when I said that, standards are, for example, things that, standards are things that you need, and preferences are things that you want. And, and a typical example would be, for a long time when I was choosing men, I was always choosing my preference over my standards. So I was always choosing, and that's the truth. A preference would be a good looking man, right? A preference would be, I like a good looking man, 6 foot tall, 6'4", 6'2", 6'6", and I would always look for, good looking man, and I would date within my industry, right? And, a standard would be a loving man, right? A loving man, someone who would treat me well. But I would choose a good looking man over a loving man. Right, I would choose a nice looking, And another preference would be a wealthy man. Who wouldn't want a wealthy man? But as growing up, I would put my preference over my standards. But now I've come to a place where I would choose a loving man, a good man, over a wealthy man any day. And if I'm lucky enough to have, my standard and my preference work together, if I'm lucky enough to have a loving, wealthy man, then, that's fine. But back to what I'm saying is, the question is, who am I? Who am I? What do I want to go? You ask questions. Who am I? That helps you have a clarity of who you are. And I think when you know who you are, it's difficult for people to shake you, because I realize that we're in a world where we get a lot of unsolicited advice. Everybody has an opinion about something. And so it's so easy to keep shaking people and moving people back and forth. It's like you don't have an opinion, you don't have a position, you don't stand for anything. When someone says, Alex, why are you dark? You should be lighter. Then you go, you bleach your skin. And people say, why you put on some weight? Then you go, you lose some weight. And they're like, oh no, we like you when you put on weight. So I found out, like, another thing, and I think I wrote about this in the book, is there was a part that I wrote something about what do men want. And I said, it's funny how you can date several men and realize that all these men come with different things that they like. So if I date someone, for example, who likes me light skinned or dark skinned, or who likes me with long hair, or who likes me skinny, or and I date somebody else who doesn't like to eat meat and loves to eat fish, and you find out you keep changing who you are. And a lot of the times we women want to fit into their ideal, so we start to change who we are and we lose ourselves. But when you know who you are, the person has to come to, even in friendship, the person has to come to you knowing who you are and accepting who you are. So, they have to accept the truth about who you are. This is who I am. I'm sorry, I like spicy food. Okay, we can find a way to work this out. Maybe a little spicy this week and no spicy that. But I'm not going to change who I am just so that I can appeal to you. So I think when we ask ourselves, who am I? And then the next question is, what do I want? And I think that, where do I want to go? And, what kind of, when we say, where do I want to go? You're pretty saying, what kind of life do you want to have? And you have to tell yourself the truth, because I think a lot of the times we, again, being fed with ideals and ideas about a lot of things that I wish that I felt that I had the power at the time to put my foot down and stand with it and say, okay, you know what, I should have done this and I would have done this, and I'm not going to shift and I'm not going to move until I do it. So I'm at that place now. At the time, a few years ago, I wasn't at that place, and I know that I paid a lot. I really paid a lot for that. So questions, who you are, what do you want, where do you want to go?
So I love your questions, and I want to talk a little bit about what it means to have those questions, being a celebrity in Nigeria, because I think everything you do, you do in the public eye, right? I can make my shift and nobody knows me. But however, you go somewhere outside your house, everybody knows you, and because you come from an entertainment family, everybody knows that your father is a very productive and a very well-known artist himself. So how do you make those shifts in public in a way that allows you, right, to still hold on to your reputation. You're going to lose somebody, I'm not saying that, but how can you make a shift so that you can shift your brand, because I'm thinking of marketing, but in a way still live your truth? Because there's always this balance, I think, to try to get yourself in alignment so your reputation and your personality or who you are is congruent. So how do you make that shift when first you went from not telling the truth, oh, I'm married, I'm happy, knowing that you're divorced? How did you start turning that shift in the public eye so that your public persona was consistent with who you saw every day in the mirror?
I think that really the truth is I just decided to be, okay, here's the thing. There's something that I used to say a lot, and that I said, I love being an actress. I love being in front of the camera. But I always used to say that I felt like it wasn't my original voice. It wasn't my authentic voice, right? And I had other skills. Like when you play in front of the camera, you're playing a role that's given to you. Someone else's voice is the voice of the writer or of the character. And so you could spend 20 years in front of the camera and nobody knows who the real you is. People are fed with a stereotype that, the roles that you play or the sensation the media has created out of who you are. The media has created out of you. People read headlines and they just go, okay, I think I know who she is. And so for a long time, people would easily look at me. I believe, they weren't saying this, but I think that people would easily look at me and go like, oh, okay, bombshell, sexy girl, lots of boobs, actress, bimbo. I don't know. They never said bimbo, but because, but there is the assumption that you're just typical, right? You're random, or you're just, one of them actresses. They put you in that box. And so I realized that there were so many other things that I wanted to share with the world. And I had other skills like my writing and speaking and all of that. But I wanted, beyond that, I really wanted mediums to be able to share my own voice. Because I was, speaking through other people's mouthpiece. I was doing things that other people wanted. I wanted to be able to do my own thing. And I think that how I made that shift was really just being authentic. It started with me starting a blog and saying things the way I thought. And yes, sometimes it's a little shocking for some. They're like, oh my God, like, did she just say that? I remember my father reading one of my articles and it was like, God, I'm just like, so, I'm so embarrassed right now. Like, I'm so embarrassed. But at the end of the day, they become your fans because they see what you're doing. When I was doing that, I was trying to, let me tell you this. I remember like on my blog, I used to write and I wrote about everything, from inspiration to life and career and reinvention. And I wrote about sex as well. And sex is very hard. It's very tough to talk about. And I was not just writing sex I was writing about sex in a really, it was naked, right? It was naked. But people didn't understand that I was pushing myself, that I was trying to put myself in a position of discomfort, that if I put myself in a place where I felt comfortable enough to be able to write about something I was so shy about and embarrassed about, then I could face anything else. And I knew that the only way that I was going to get people to listen, sometimes you have to use the language of the people. I could come and tell you, try to inspire and motivate you, and you're like, yeah, sure, I've heard that before. I hear it all the time. But then I knew that every time I talked about something raunchy or raw, and then I got their attention. And half the time I was never even talking about sex, but I was using the language and, innuendos and stuff like that. So for me, in the spotlight and the camera, what happened was I already felt like, what, I'm here. I already have this space. Right now I can say and do whatever I want and just be myself. And if you don't like it, that's yourself. So right in front of people, I started using other mediums to share just things that I believed. I started writing, and I think it was from that people saw what I really, the kind of impact that, what I really wanted to give to the world, what I really wanted to serve. So it's really courage, and so I'm saying, but the truth is that for me in the spotlight, it was really, I didn't really care about judgment anymore. I think you just get to that place. I think when you get to the point where you're no longer afraid, you become so brave that you don't care if you're not even sure if, you don't know how it's going to end. You can climb on a mountain, and there's also an innocence that comes from being naked. It's like when you have a newborn baby, right? The baby doesn't know they're naked. right? They don't feel any shame. You're not afraid of anything. They don't, you're not afraid that they could that they could get scarred, or, hot water could drop on them and they could get burnt. Like, the child doesn't know anything. So there's an innocence that comes from just being yourself and being authentic. And I think it's attractive because people are just going to look at you and go like, oh, I like her. She's weird, but I like her. So, I think that's what it was. I think people started falling in love with, I didn't really, it wasn't planned. I can't tell you that there was some strategy. The only thing that I can tell you is that, I became more expressive, and I was owning my expression, and I wasn't ashamed about it. And then that expression took me into a place of awareness, because the more I said something, the more I entered an awareness of what it was. And then, of course, awareness, takes you, when you become, there's some sort of clarity that comes, and then you enter you enter another level of transformation, because then you're like, okay, I said this. Why did I say this? I reacted this way. Why did I react this way? Okay, so, I want to date. I'm not dating. Why am I not dating? What kind of men am I attracting? Am I picking men in the wrong places, or am I picking men that are unavailable, or am I picking? So you start to get into, you really become expressive of what you want. You become expressive of who you are. I think that's the first step. You go from expression to an awareness, and then to a transformation. So I can't really tell you the strategy, but I just tell you that what happened was, I really wanted to reveal. I wanted to bring out all the things that I'd been hiding, that I'd been covering them, and I just wanted to be free. Like, I didn't want to, walk around with baggage. And I think, yeah, that's it.
I think that freedom is part of satisfaction. And I love on page 255, I love that you give these call them boosts, morsels of truth. I love what you said this. On page 255, you said, you must get self-satisfaction from pushing yourself to the limit, knowing that all the effort is somehow going to pay off one way or another. I really love that about pushing yourself, because that's what you just said, that you were courageous and you wanted to make yourself uncomfortable, and you did that, and you were successful, and you were expressive. But I also like something that I want you to talk about here on page 256. I love this. You said, stop looking at life through a keyhole. Open the door to your opportunity. Get involved and create the person that you are meant to become. I love that, because what it's saying is you have the power to create what you want. So talk about how in life you have done thousands of interviews. You have interviewed Sean Anker. You have interviewed Lisa Nichols. I mean, you have really interviewed some high power people. And how did you get to the point where you said, they might not know who I am, but I am worthy, and I am just as successful, I'm just as competent, I have just same level of a gift to give to the world, and I'm going to call them and they're going to come on my show. I'm amazed at some of the people that you have interviewing, because people know that you're special. They call you the Oprah of Nigeria. I love that. So talk about that. How did you get out way outside of your comfort zone and not look through the keyhole, but knock over the door and said, I am going to not just dominate Africa, I am going to spread this naked philosophy from North America and Canada and Mexico and Australia. You're everywhere. How did you keep knocking country by country by country to make sure that your philosophy was going to be known, and that you had a voice, an authentic voice that was different to share with the world?
Okay, so I want to kind of go back to something that you mentioned first, and when you talked about, something that I said about, the mind being a powerhouse. For me, I had to have, like I said, I had to have a, a real talk with myself, because there's so many things that I wanted to do that I wasn't doing. I remember every time I have an idea, I'll come and tell my father, I'm like, oh, I want to do this. And my dad's like, okay, another one of those ideas. Oh, and I had so many of them, and he said, don't tell me anything anymore until you get it done, but they were just ideas, and I just always felt limited, because I felt like, oh, I lived in Nigeria. There was so much that I could do. There was so little that I could do, because I felt like I'd literally put myself in a box. And so a lot of the times we tell ourselves that, we put boundaries, and those boundaries are mental boundaries, but there are also physical boundaries. And a lot of times when people talk about freedom, we're not just talking about physical freedom, we're all talking about mental freedom. It's like, why do you limit yourself? You build a business and you say, I want to operate to people up, behind my backyard, or I just want to operate with the people in my community, or I just want to serve the people in my state or my country. Why can't you serve people around the world? Like, what is stopping you and holding you back from doing that? Why should only people in Nigeria be the one to know about the naked philosophy? Why should they be the only one that I can take? For me, when I was growing, one of the things that I wanted to do was, that I've always wanted to do is influence. Influence other people and influence them positively. And so I said to myself, is the only way that I'm going to influence people just be through my acting, right? What are the chances that someone in China would have seen the soap opera that I did in Nigeria? That's like 0 to 2. What are the chances that, someone in, in wherever else would have seen, a movie that I've done, a homegrown, movie that I've done here? We don't know what the chances are. So I have to find the medium to get to the people that I want to get to. What is that medium? Maybe they will read a blog. Maybe they would read, they would, listen to a podcast. Maybe they would see it. So I had to start creating those mediums for myself. And I wasn't waiting for anybody to give me the opportunity. And I was like, okay, how am I going to get across to these people? But I think that you also get to that, from that mental, you start to free yourself of the limitations that society has capped for you. You're an actress, so because you're an actress, you can be an author, right? Because you're not, because you're a mom, you can't have a day job. Because you have a corporate job, you can't start your own business, and you can't be a speaker, you can't be anything. We put ourselves in those boxes, and you have to tell yourself that as a person or as a woman, you have the power to be everything and anything you want. And this is what I believe. I feel like if you knew for sure that you had the freedom to be everything you want and anything you want, wouldn't that make you unstoppable? You can say, oh, yeah, I can do this, and I have the right to do this, and nobody's going to hold me back. You get it done. So I think a lot of the times, we feel like we create those limitations in our head, boundaries. Like when I started my show, it wasn't meant to be a global show. It was meant to be a show for just my countries. I was just going to invite my colleagues from the industry, other actors and musicians, and that's it, But I think the moment that I first got that email, I think it was my third show. It was weird. My third show, I got an email from an American author. She's like, I loved your show and I'd love to be a guest on your show. And here's the thing. That was an opportunity for me to say, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. This show is actually a show for just Nigerians. Or it's just a show for just Africans, because that's the show that I created. But then I saw an opportunity right there. It wasn't part of my plan. It wasn't part of my original plan. But I was like, wait, hang on a second. I might have an international show. If she wants to be on my show, hell yeah, I want her on my show. And so, and at that point, before then, I didn't think of the possibility. I didn't really think about it. But opportunity knocks and you open. You're like, sure, I'm going to take advantage of that. And I had the show and I enjoyed it. I loved it. I was like, well, this feels very different. Maybe I should do that, because not many people here are doing exactly that. So how do I find them? I need to find more people like this woman. I need to find more people who have great stories, who are doing great things in the world. How do I reach out to them? So I started, trying to, I started learning and trying to find out who they are, and working on myself every day as well, because the truth is that that iron sharpens iron, right? You have to elevate, you have to put yourself at a level where people can't say no to you. But you have to do the homework. There's something you posted yesterday, and you talked about process. I would never have asked Lisa Nichols 4 years ago at the start of what I'm creating, right? In fact, I didn't ask her. That's the truth, actually. I got pitched. I didn't ask her. I didn't actually invite her. They wrote to me to say, hey, would you like to have this on your show? I'm like, yeah, sure, right. But the point is, what I'm just saying is that, but there are people that I've invited and that I said to myself, okay, it's not time yet to reach out to them. I need to do the homework and get to the place where I know that when I say hello, they're going to pick up my call. And they're going to sit with me on that. So when you talk about process, I understand what you mean about process, because there are a lot of things that, you kind of build on yourself. And not when I say build on yourself, you're not just building, now when we're talking about business, but even build on your courage, build on your the level of freedom that you have. Now I can be like, hey, like, what do you want to offer me? I have a child. Sometimes I'm used to getting compliments and meeting, seeing, having people say all sorts of things to you, but I try not to get carried away. And I think that's important, which is why I said you have to know who you are. Because when you know who you are, you don't get carried away by praises. You don't get carried away by comments, criticism, or whatever it is. You know who you are, and you know where you're going, and you know what you want. So it's going to be difficult to shake you and shift you just because somebody thinks something you're doing is wrong, or shake your shift you just because the whole world thinks you're the next best thing after bread, sliced bread. Like, you just, you maintain your humility and you maintain focus on where you're going because you know who you are and what you want to do. So for me, I think what I did is, like I said, process. I worked on myself. I captured my message. I wanted to, I was the one thing that would be valuable to the entire world. Freedom. Freedom. We're not all, how would I say, we're not free until each one of us is free. So freedom would be the best gift you could give anyone. And how would I say that to them? Be naked. That is the highest level of you can enter. Because when you are, I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself.
That's okay. Come on.
You hear me?
I hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, you hear me? Okay, because the media person is here. So I feel like, as when you get naked, you know, even though you strip all the levels, you strip all the things holding you back, right? You strip, you reveal your strengths. You could reveal your brilliance. But you're not also ashamed to reveal your scars. You're not ashamed to reveal, the flaws, because these are the things that make who you are. I always said, what makes you different makes you beautiful. So while Alex, doesn't sleep at night and she has some quirks, there's some things that I do right and positive about her, and the things that are negative about her are also things that make her. So when we celebrate. Oh God, I have to go. When we celebrate, what makes us, I hear myself, sorry. When we celebrate, you can hear that, right? It just keeps going in my ear. Okay. So when you celebrate what makes us, when you celebrate what makes you, makes you special, makes you different, people can appreciate you the way you are. I think that's what being naked is really about. It's about knowing that, you're not perfect, but they're not also perfect either, right? And you can laugh at your imperfections. So you can embrace your imperfections. You can laugh at your silly mistakes. You can look at yourself and say, hey, you know what? I make this, this is something that I made a mistake, and it's okay because I'm not perfect. You can give yourself that acceptance. I think that it's the freedom of acceptance you give yourself, but it's also the freedom of acceptance that you give other people. Because then you appreciate what makes you different as well, and you appreciate that they will always make mistakes, and people are flawed, and nobody's perfect, and that just kind of makes the world easier in a sense. Because we're not holding things, we're not expecting, we don't have, not expecting perfection.
Yeah.
From ourselves and from others.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a little feedback, but that's okay. I'm just happy that you're here from Nigeria. I always believe that only free people can free people. And I think, just like you said, when we walk in our freedom, we give other people permission to be their flawed but favored self. And I think it's something that, especially as women, when we get that, out of the 7 billion people in the world, we are the only us. 7 billion people in the world, and nobody else is like you. I think when people get that and stand in that, that's just a sense of power. And it's a sense of celebration because nobody's like you. Out of 7 billion people, you're the only you. And I think that's such a powerful place to be. So I want to shift a little bit to talk about sex. And let me tell you why I love your book about this sex. I think your book will give people permission to not only talk about sex, but say sex words. I think we have so much stigma surrounded around our body parts. I don't even know what's the rule with Facebook, because I don't know whether to say the words. I don't know if Facebook has a rule to say and breasts and whatever. and I think that we continue to stigmatize a topic when we don't talk about it. I love how you talk about sex with so much freedom. And when I first started reading, like, whoo, but I just kept, when I started reading it, because I really enjoyed it. I love when you talk about the relationships, how women sometimes think that sex is the antidote, that we think that the sex is what's going to attract a partner. You talk about, I'm going to say it, about the importance of character and coochie. That's what you said, right? In the book. I'm like, did I just say that out loud? I love how you talked about that women, how we give our bodies away, or we offer up our bodies as a tool of negotiation. Can you say a little bit about that, and why do we do that? And you also talked about how we allow ourselves to be in relationships with men that only use us for our bodies, and that we allow it. Can you say a little bit more about that? Our bodies, how we use our bodies as a bargaining tool, and why do we do that? And what are some advice that you can give women that you share in this book, because you share so many things about how to own your body, and that your body is not a negotiation tool. And if you want to have sex, but don't do it to try to grab someone, to think it's going to be the thing that keeps them.
First of all, I'm kind of glad that we're having this conversation. And just before we get into, we talking about, sex, or something you said about, just, words, and how, we're not able to use certain words and body parts and mention things. I found out that, as a communicator, as someone who is in the media and, in the entertainment industry, I found out that we give so much power to words, and words are powerful. As a writer, I know the power that words have. But sometimes you got to look at it, in a way and say, wait, why should 3-letter words be giving me such a hard time? It's like, or you see something about money. Money is like 5-letter words. And money is so heavy that those 5-letter words can, curse, like really cause an earthquake. Like imagine, money can destroy families, and people can fight themselves. And then, just how powerful little words, things like, sex, like why you're afraid of it. Like, it's just 3-letter words. And so I find out that, when we say some things, so for example, somebody would be afraid to say F-U-C-K, right? And why that feels like it's just a word. Like, I think the weight, the power you give something, like the reason I write the way that I write in the book is that I found out that you can give as much or as little power to any word, right? So you can decide this is just what it is. I'm not giving so much to that. Like, this is just what it is. It's just the word. Like, you can want to you can make it heavy and feel like, oh, why are you saying this? Why is this is inappropriate? But you're the one who's giving so much weight to something that shouldn't have so much weight. Like, like it shouldn't be difficult to say breasts. Like, it's not that. But, back to talking about, just women and, and mentioning the character of the coochie. What I discovered, and this is again based on personal experience. I spent a few years being the back pocket girl. And when I say back pocket girl, I was the second fiddle. You're dating someone and you're waiting to be number one, kind of. You think you're number one, but you're not really number one, because there's like several number ones. And you think that, the way to his heart and, the way I'm going to keep this person is by giving them my body, right? Having sex. And if we have great sex, because we're animals of habits, right? We're animals of habits. And I found out that a lot of the times, most relationships, and let's be honest, like several, a large percentage of, sorry. So a large percentage of relationships start as sexual relationships. Even sometimes, even if they end up married or they end up dating for years, usually always starts with, most relationships, even if people are not being honest with themselves, the man is not, someone's going to go like, oh, she's beautiful. I can't wait to, he's not saying, oh, she's beautiful. I want to get her married. I want to marry her the next day. Like, that's not what he's thinking. Let's be honest. Like, he's not saying, hey, I want to go to the altar with you, and you're not looking at him and going, that's my future husband. You just met him. So you all are definitely thinking of something very different. But what I found out is that, men use sex. Men use love to get sex from women, and women use sex to get love from men. So a lot of the times, men will use love to get sex from women, because we women are emotional beings, and we attach sex to love. We think that we have a very different representation of what sex is. So we think that we would usually have sex with someone we think we're emotionally connected to. And for men understand that, and so they use love to get sex from us, and we use sex to try to get love from them. But we don't realize that it's a setup, right? We're setting each other up, because truth is, we think if they say they know that if they say I love you, and then you're going to drop the pudding, and that you think if you give it to him every day and use whatever that he's probably going to fall in love with you, that he's going to get so used to being with you that he only wants to be with you. But those of us will learn from experience that that's not true. So back to what I found out is that, and again, this is from being in a relationship with someone for like 8 years, almost 8 years, and one day hoping that he'll bump his head on the wall, and that I will somehow become the main squeeze. And I'm like, okay, when am I going to go from being, we're trying everything, we're doing everything that people in a committed relationship do, and somehow you're, there really isn't, there's no real, like, you think there's a commitment, but there's no real commitment, because there's, you have kind of lowered the standard. You've offered everything, and you've given everything. So why does he need to commit to you to get what he's getting right now? Right, he's getting everything. You're giving everything. So what else is he going to get from you? Like, what do you want to give to this person? Why do you need them to step up to get what you're already giving to them? So what I found out was that, even as women, of course, we've also been, based on how some of us were raised, we're not supposed to feel good about sex. It's not something you do. It's only something, the man wants. It's a way to keep the way to the man's heart after food. It's all of those things that we've been told that are important to them. And so we think that we have to basically put ourselves in a position where that's the only way we can get what we want. But I've gotten to that place, and again, for a long time, you would try something and you realize that I was never really having sex for myself. Like, you think about it, like, not like but you find out that every time that it may have happened, it was because you thought it would please the man, because you thought it would make make you feel closer to him, it would make you feel connected to him. You would think that it would, it was never really for. And it's funny, because I had this conversation with so many other women. I remember, there was this girl one time, and she just, broke up with her boyfriend, and she started crying, and she was crying, and she was so angry. And I'm like, why are you crying? She's like, you don't even know half the things I did. And I'm like, half the things you did? It's like, you don't know all the things I did in bed just to please you. And I'm like, we women are impressionable. And so we do all these things because we think that it will make us closer, or will make us special or different from, whoever else they get to sleep with the next time. So what I found out is that what I decided was that I have to tell myself the truth. Sex is not a bargaining chip. It's not something that you use to get something you want. It's not a gift. When I hear someone say, somebody say stuff like, what's it called? Pity sex, right? Pity sex. Like when you sleep with someone just because you feel like, okay, I felt sorry for her, or I felt sorry for him. Like, why would you feel sorry for someone and sleep with them? Like, sex is not a gift, or you owe someone, like, they were kind to me, they were nice to me, so I just had to sleep with him. Why? Like, it's not a gift. It's not something you owe someone. It's not something you use to bargain. It's not something you use to manipulate someone or trick people. Like, if you were going to build a relationship with someone and you want them to really fall in love with you, or you wanted to, build a connection, then I don't think sex, because really, man can get sex anywhere with anyone. So,
the freedom that you talk about sex, and the way that you remove the stigma and to stand in your truth, I think is so refreshing. It's so refreshing. think that society and religion, all these type of things, have women just owning that part of themselves. And we are sexual beings. And so, and if you have to disown part of yourself, you can't exist in power in that place. So I love when you said, I'm going to own that part of me. I'm going to own I'm going to own my truth. I'm going to own my body. I'm going to own my brilliance. So as we come to a close, and we're talking about your brilliance, I admire that you have created this international platform and that you are showing other women how to do it too. That doesn't happen a lot. So I know that you have this class coming up called Smash. I cannot wait to enroll. Talk a little bit about Smash and tell me why. Tell me the connection, because I think Smash is connected to the Naked Truth, because it's all about who Alex is. So tell me about Smash. When is it going to begin, and how can people join or enroll in your class?
Okay, so, first of all, I was thinking, okay, so last year's over, we're in a new year. What if we could smash 2018? And it's funny because I tend to always use words that people kind of put a stigma to. If you notice, I would say stuff like naked and smash, and I have we have a book called I Bared My Chest, and I have a book coming out called Reveal, and I have Stripped Down Success, and I'm always stripping something and smashing something, but it really is. But basically, I have the Brag Club, and so I was going to put together the Brag Factor Masterclass. And people don't really know where brag came from. Brag, again, is something that people would naturally have a negative connotation, right? So you'd say, oh, this person is bragging, and it kind of means that they're arrogant. But I think, like, no, I always want to look at the positive, the positive things of words that we give so much weight to. Like, no, a person's not brag, a person is celebrating their brilliance, right? They're celebrating their power, they're celebrating their achievements and their accomplishment, and he honors the hard work that you put into stuff. So when I created the Brag Club and the Brag Factor, the Brag Magazine, and all of those things, people don't know where that came from. The truth is that came after I came into my own through my naked journey. So usually what happens is before I came into my truth, I was really ashamed of myself. And I didn't have anything to brag about. Like, when you're so ashamed of yourself that you don't have anything to brag about, like you feel like, what's there to talk about? Like, my entire life is a lie. I'm ashamed, I'm ashamed. I'm a walking shame. And so you start, first of all, to work on your personal growth. And, you come into that place where, you decide to reveal yourself or reveal the mistakes that you've made and sort of, embrace the truth of who you are and become authentic, and then things start to come together, and then everything started piecing together. I realized that I'd never been more attractive, like in terms of you started when I say more attractive, I mean attracting collaborators, attracting people to work with, attracting opportunities, attracting there's something about naked people like naked, not just naked women, but there's something about being naked is that you become attractive in a sense. And so I started attracting all of these opportunities, and all of a sudden I started having things I could brag about. So, my life became like, oh wow, more accomplishments. Oh wow, more, honors. Oh wow, more awards, being able to, connect and network with people. So I decided, okay, what if I put together a class and I show people how to really be able to brand, reinvent, align, and grow, whether it's their name, their business, their service, their product, or their organization. And it's something that, through the entire process, for the last 5 years that I've been able to figure out, just growing myself. And so, the Smash class really, the Brag Factor Masterclass is just me sharing people 5 Mondays from March 12th, I think it's a Monday, every Monday for 5 weeks. So it would go from March 12th to April 9th, and every Monday, I will, we'll take one class, we'll go from branding, and we'll break down the word branding into just the different elements of what it really is to be a brand. So, and I would teach that, and and then we'll enter to the next level, what it means to reinvent. R is for reinvent, and then we'll go to A to align. How do you align and collaborate? Find the right people to connect with, collaborate, and build what you're building. And G, what it really means to grow as an individual, but grow as a business, grow your service, grow your product. I don't think, so I really want to break it down for people to learn how to be able to really smash 2018. So I want people to smash it, right? And that's, so, what they can really do, if they go to bit.ly, bit.ly/the Brag Factor Masterclass, or they go to the Brag Club, thebragclub.com, and click on events, then they can, easily sign up for the class. So, yeah.
I think that is exciting. And tell us, I want everybody to connect with you. There's so many ways that they can connect with you. Tell us about your show.
Okay.
Also, tell us a little bit about I Bared My Chest and what's next for Alex. I know Reveal comes out later on this year. So share, where can we find you and what's next for Miss Alex?
Oh, SharRon, there's so many things. And you know what? There's so many things, but I'm not. It's so funny how I'm not so great at talking about the things and when I say there's so many things, and not just many things for me, but many things for everyone connected to me. So I'm not usually just celebrating myself. I'm celebrating all the people around. So they're kind of like part of my calendar, because I'm like, okay, SharRon's book is coming out so time. This person's events is coming out so time. That's part of what's happening for me, because I'm what's happening for people are happening for me too as well. So but yes, I have the radio show, The Naked Talk, and The Naked Talk is every Wednesday. It's live every Wednesday and Friday. If they go to the Naked Talk live, that's where I host my show. And it's just, we just take the naked conversation to another level. And it's, again, you give people the freedom to not be ashamed about who they are, what they want, their experiences, and to share those experiences in a in a platform where there's no judgment. No judgment. We don't judge. So yes, and I do have my book Reveal coming out. Reveal is coming out at the end of the year, and again, I will share people how they can really now just strip down all the barriers, boundaries, and limiting beliefs holding them, and reveal their brilliance. Our anthology, which you're a part of, I Bared My Chest, is out, and I know that there is an Amazon event happening on IWD, on International Women's Day, I think. Yes, so there's going to be a 24-hour live broadcast. So I just love for people to be able to join us and join in and support us and support us. And why this is important, because even though the book is called I Bared My Chest, but it's really, we're trying to empower people to work in their own personal freedom. You have 21 amazing, unstoppable women who share their bold, brave, and ballsy journey to personal freedom. And believe me, again, with even though there is that element of freedom as well in what you all get to share, or what we all got to share in the book. So we're not sugarcoating anything. I'm telling you like it is. It is, some of the chapters will make you feel like 50 Shades of Grey is like nursery, like a nursery book. I'm sorry. And then, some chapters that people have different experiences, but I think that what is most important is to see how diverse people are, how different we are, whether it's the age group, where we come from, our religion, our sexual orientation. We're so different, but at the core of it all, we're all the same, and we all want the same thing. And I think that is really something that I realized is a unifying factor, is that we all want to be free. Nobody wants to be caged. We all want to be able to live life on our own terms, live life at the highest level of ourselves. So, yeah.
I'm excited about I Bared My Chest. I'm excited about Smash. I'm excited about your talk show. I have grown so much, myself personally, as well as my brand, just by your influence. So I'm so grateful that you are in my life and that you're my sister. I want to encourage everyone to go to the Naked Truth. We have not even touched the surface because it's so rich. So we have to come back and talk about the book. But I wanted Alex to share so much about who she is and how she navigates in the world in her perspectives, because I think that you exemplify what it means to be bold, brilliant, and beautiful. And I wanted other people to have an opportunity to experience you, because I get to experience you all the time, because I talk to you a lot. So I wanted people to get to experience who you are. So get the Naked Truth. After we finish the broadcast, what I will do is put all her links so you can connect with her on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Everything is her name. Her website is her name. And I want to say thank you so much, Alex, for your time.
Thank you.
And for sharing your platform for so many other women as we embark in this Women's Month. And thank you so much for sharing your genius with me. I celebrate you and I love you. And thanks so much for being here this evening. Well, this morning for you, but this evening for us.
Well, thank you, SharRon. This has been a pleasure, and it's always an honor. You know how much I love you, right? So I think everybody knows because they're like, oh my God, I'm always gushing about her. But really, just thank you. Like, this is, I don't take this for granted. I don't take, and I think that's something about, like, everything is a big deal for me. I make noise about everything. Everything it's a big deal for me. So I'm grateful that we get to talk about this, and it's 12 a.m. It doesn't matter because I love it. I love that I get to speak with you, and this is so much fun. I know I talk a lot, so I probably talked the entire time, but I'm just
perfect. I'm grateful, and you know what? You were authentic. We were what? The naked truth, right? We had told the naked truth. So thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. We celebrate you and have a good evening. Bye, Alex. Thank you for coming up, hon. Bye.
Bye.
From Nigeria to Atlanta.